Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 240 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I am so proud to welcome back Corin Nemec, Jonas Quinn of Stargate SG-1, and I'm also joined by my producer in this episode, Linda Gategabber Fury. We're here to talk about a number of different things and catch up with Corin. Man, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Just listening to the clippity of the claws of my little corgi all
Dude.
day. You get wood floors and then you get a dog.
So that's just how it works, man. And then you have to trim the nails of the dog just to keep it from driving you crazy.
Exactly. He's like Fred Astaire, you know.
That's it. So how are things going? And you've been busy with so many different projects. What's going on?
Well, I have I go by the Michael Caine school of workmanship, and that's if the script is good enough and you see something in the character that you can bring that might not be there, and it's an opportunity to act, you take the job. So,
Absolutely.
I keep myself working also through my relationships with producers, directors, and I produce and write projects myself. One is out right now called Deadly Justice that I wrote, produced, that has myself, Brian Krause, and Kelly Sullivan starring in it. And it's a thriller, murder mystery thriller set in the Deep South. I think people will enjoy that. It's streaming on a bunch of different platforms. Anyway.
So Deadly Suspect, did you say?
Deadly Justice.
Deadly Justice. Excuse me.
Yeah,
I'm mixing up some of
Deadly
my.
Justice. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's yeah. So I keep myself very busy. I mean, I have a bunch of projects coming out right
Yeah.
now, which is just nuts. I mean, Joe Baby, which I actually play the title character. I don't have a huge role in it, but a nice role. And that has Deacon Lockman and
She's
Ron
great.
Perlman, and yeah, Ron Perlman, Harvey Keitel. It's a great cast. A film
Oh,
called Place of Bones, where I star opposite Heather Graham and Tom Hopper, which is going to be fantastic. It's a thriller that's set in the Wild West, in the
okay.
like around the late 1800s. And a film called I Feel Fine, which is premiering at the Sunscreen Film Festival in St. Petersburg, Florida, down here. Which is a fantastic drama that I co-star in as well. And then a whole series of there's probably like 5 or 6 other films too coming out. There's the one that's dropping right now too, called Day Labor, which is a very dramatic kind of action thriller. And I play all these really interesting different characters in all these different films. So it's nice to actually talk about that as well as what we'll talk about later, which is the book.
No, absolutely. When you look back on your career, um, what are some of the projects that you are most proud of that you think really defined you? And what is stuff that you have a teenage son now? What
Yeah.
what projects are you most proud of when looking at him as a person who is coming into this world where depending on how he reacts to you, it's like, yeah, dad, whatever.
Yeah.
That you're most proud of
We
that
don't want
exists for him to discover.
Yeah. I mean, it goes in stages, really. There's different. Fortunately for me, I've been able to maintain consistency of labor from 1986 until present.
Right.
So
Linda, can you hear him? I think we lost him.
Oh, no, he's muted.
Oh,
there's been a number of someone was trying to call
there we
me.
go.
I should turn that off, actually. I don't know how to. I don't know how to. Whatever.
It's fine.
So there we go. But the different projects at different times. I mean, early on, the first thing that was defining was the movie Tucker, playing the role of Noble Tucker in Francis Ford Coppola's film
Mm-hmm.
as Jeff Bridges' son in that, and it wasn't a huge role or anything, but it was a fantastic film to be a part of, an incredible cast, an incredible learning experience for a young actor who had only been acting for about a year or so professionally before getting that role, even maybe even less than a year. But so that was the initial defining moment. And then I think I Know My First Name is Steven, the mini series that garnered me an Emmy nomination up against Danny Glover. I was competing against him for the nomination, who I later worked with on Operation Dumbo Drop. But at 15 years old, the competition, him, Armand Asante, I can't remember all the others, but the actors I was up against, the caliber, the level of work they had done, and here I was, basically almost a nobody out of Hollywood, who had just a tiny short list of performances under my belt. So that was a really defining moment. I think that Parker Lewis was and wasn't a defining moment for me. I mean, in the pop culture world and all of that, it certainly was at the time. But that show, we didn't do enough episodes for it to really get widely distributed later on in syndication. So it lost a whole lot of its influence in at least in the Americas over the years, and widely is somewhat forgotten. Over in Europe, it's a different story. It played all the time,
right?
But so in a way it didn't, which is a good thing for me, because I never wanted to be defined as a particular character on a show. That was never my objective, and I took.
Whoop. Lost him again. Hang on.
Parker Lewis and did a dramatic movie of the week every hiatus. So the first one I did for the very first time, which was a great ensemble cast starring opposite a young Corin Nemec and a bunch of other great actors. Then it was a coming of age story. Then the next one was My Son Johnny after season 2, which I did with Rick Schroeder, and a very heavy dramatic role in that. And then after third season, I did Life Force Experiment with Donald Sutherland, and
wow.
And so, and it was a real heavy drama, so I was constantly trying to seed out there that this isn't, that I do other things. I'm actually more known for my drama than my comedy. I wanted to remind people
of course
that. So I think The Stand was the second really defining moment in my career, playing Harold Lauder, because at that time Parker Lewis had ended, and there was an immediate reverberative effect of being Parker Lewis in Hollywood at that time in the casting world, and I was having a hard time.
We lost him again.
I got the project not that long after we wrapped up the final season of Parker Lewis. Still, I was going to a lot of auditions. I was having a lot of meetings after that. I was getting into a lot of rooms, but it was a lot of cold rooms, and a lot of people going, nah, not interested in Parker Lewis.
Yeah.
So I was really having to do a lot of reevaluation of just like, and that's also when I got back into acting classes, because I'd always been in acting classes all the way up until the second season of Parker Lewis, and I just didn't have time anymore studying with different teachers. And when at this same time period after the third season, I ended up with the American Repertory Company, which was the artistic director was Manu Tupou, who became my mentor. I studied with him for 10 years, the longest I studied with any teacher ever throughout my career. And he changed my life. Is really because of being in that class. I don't think I would have had the same longevity had I not gotten into his class and fell back in love with the creative process of acting and paying to have the opportunity to act. You know what I mean? Instead of being on the high horse with the big Stetson saying, "Hey, I'm the cowboy.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody come to me." It really it was great to be humbled again, and to feel the same enthusiasm for my craft that I felt when I was 11 years old, when I was first studying at Kevin McDermott's company, Center Stage LA, as a youth, and was so excited to go to class every week that I was losing my mind, constantly preparing, constantly rehearsing, constantly, without anybody having to tell me a thing. It was my passion. It was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kept I just kept working, and with The Stand, when I got that, when Mick Garris gave me the opportunity to do that, when I auditioned for it, I read the character breakdown. I was like, I'm not going to get this role. It's just another role I'm not right for. They're just seeing me because it's trendy to have me in the room right now or whatever. So when I read the script and all of that, I understood the character. I knew that I could be the character. That wasn't a problem for me, but I did see the audition as a little ludicrous based on the character description and how I looked physically. But when I did the audition, and Mick and Steven had a conversation while I was in the room, a weird little quiet, whispery conversation and stuff like that after the audition. And I didn't know if that was bad or good or what was going on, but I got the offer, I think maybe even later that day.
Wow.
And it turned out that Mick Garris, I had my good friend Brian Krause, he played in Sleepwalker, and I didn't know it, but that it was between me and him for the role of Sleepwalker. And I love Brian Krause. He's a super talented actor, and Mick really loved me for that role, and they went with Brian Krause, which I think was a smart role. I think a smart choice, because I don't think I would have done the same thing as that he did. I think he did made the right choices for that. But Mick Garris really loved me as a possibility for that role and saw something in me. And I guess in the process of casting for The Stand, he kept mentioning me to Steven, and Steven was like, "Look at this guy. Are you kidding me? That's not Harold Lauder. Have you read the book?" And it was some point of comedic contention between the two of them until I auditioned. And then Steven and them, they were in the room, and he's like, I guess he was saying, "See, I told you that he could play." And he was like, "Oh yeah, you're right, he can." And then they cast me in it, and that's what gave me the next lift off to be able to just start working again consistently. I did Drop Zone after that, then did Operation Dumbo Drop right after that, and then did this movie Blackout right after that, and then did again worked with John Badham shortly after that on Brothers Keeper, and just kept going all the way up until Stargate in 2003. So it's when people are looking at the career, the one thing that I didn't do that I think may or may not have affected my career in one way or another, but I never engaged in the Hollywood politics, publicity, glory making, shine the light, all the red carpets and all of that stuff. That just, it was never really my thing. I was forced to do it at a young age. I didn't like the way that I was represented in the media. I didn't feel it was an honest portrayal of who I was as an artist and as a person. It was just all so fake. Everything was so fake, and I finally was just like, I gotta just do this because I love to do it.
You have to find your way.
That and it's about what's the reason? Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What is it? It's a very frustrating business to be in. It's you're 98, 99% rejection and 1% good job. You know what I mean? And that's what you have to live with pretty much, your whole career, unless you're one of the rare rare actors out there who crosses that thin line, and it's just offers for the next 25, 30 years.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that happens, but it's such a thin line. You're talking about maybe less than 1% of the members of SAG have that experience.
That's absolutely true. And, it's wild. Just with the industry contracting now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with even that percentage. So, but
yeah, that's an interesting conversation. Just to touch on it real quick, I think that I think what's being missed here is that there's a huge opportunity for independent streaming platforms and all of this to step in and to offer really fair deals to the filmmakers and all of that on the revenue side and everything, whether it's subscription based or ad rev based or a combination of the two. It's about where's the revenue from those shows going to? Is it, how much of it is going back to the people who are making those shows, who are doing them and all of that, versus who's just running the platform and what is the machine behind it and how independent is it? I think in the music industry that needs to come about as well. And I think that, so I think that there's a huge within that vacuum that's about to, that is kind of occurring right now. I think that there's also more work than anybody's ever seen. There's more networks and streaming platforms than anybody's ever seen, but they're all very corporately structured and very, very formulaic, in their approach. And I think that if that dynamic is broken and you have somebody step in who's got enough power, enough clout, like a Elon Musk did on Twitter with X or something, you have somebody of that magnitude open up a really fair streaming platform, that with the right people, like Angel Studios has done as well with their model, but something that's a little bit more open socially, than,
for sure.
Than you know what I'm saying. So
Absolutely.
I'm excited about it. Actually, I think there's some great opportunity ahead.
People are going to find a way, and it's interesting. You mentioned Tucker earlier. Linda did some research and found a Stargate connection there. Linda,
yeah, you actually started along Dean Stockwell.
Yes,
and that was your first time working with him, and then of course he was with you, being your mentor.
Yeah, I was very excited. I was very excited to work with him again because when we shot, I was in the big scene with his character. I was actually in with him and Jeff Bridges, and he was just, watching him and Jeff Bridges act together, I was just like, I was beside myself. It was epic, and it was funny because he's so short. That when they did the scene and Jeff Bridges is so tall, they had to basically build a little scaffolding out of apple boxes and little planks of wood and stuff that get this really long tracking shot, long walk and talk shot with the two of them. And Howard Hughes is supposed to be really tall. So they had to get him taller than Jeff Bridges, and he's much shorter. And so they built this whole thing and they shot the whole thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm doing my, whatever, and I'm watching it. And in the end, when you're watching the scene, if anybody ever goes back and watch it, look at the waistlines, and you're going to go, oh my God, he's all legs, because you're going to see he's taller than Jeff Bridges, but it doesn't make sense in terms of his physical, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh my gosh, he must have like 3.5, 4 foot long legs and like a 3 foot torso.
Jeez, man.
Yeah,
it's pretty funny.
That was very early in your career. Had you kept in touch with any of the people you worked on Tucker with?
The only one that I had seen on a somewhat regular basis was Christian Slater.
Okay.
He's in your age group.
Yeah, a little bit. He was probably like maybe 4 years older than I was, 5 years older than I was, something like that. But in the acting circles, then, like at the media events, at the if they have like, I was always at the Special Olympics was the one thing that I actually wanted to do every year. That was the one thing that I was actually excited to go and be a part of. And most of the other stuff was just like tchotchke events, as I called them. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm here for. Just tell me where to stand, who to take a picture with. What is this?
Insert actor here.
I'm down.
Yes.
I'm down. We're saving the whales today. Perfect. Let's do this. Let's save some whales. But so I saw him at events and stuff like that and everything. We didn't really hang out too much in the same social circles. Like I said, he's a hint older than I was. I was hanging out with David Arquette, Balthazar Getty, Brian Brian Greene,
Mm.
Stephen Dorff. That was my whole kind of, crew.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you were at school with a lot of the actors of a similar age to you. What's that like?
Mila Jovovich, Christina Applegate, Johnny Whitworth, Soleil Moonfry, Jenny Lewis, Chris Pettit, rest in peace, poor guy. I mean, Seth Binzer, the lead singer from Crazy Town, Shifty from Crazy Town, the band. He was in high school with me along with Justin Warfield, who's the lead singer of the indie band She Wants Revenge. And all of us were in high school together. There's even more people than that. I sometimes I forget. I go back and I look through I'm like, oh my God, they went there too. But it was basically a school for young actors and artists that were working professionally under the age of 18. So that's and we only went to school from 9:15 to 12:30 every day. So it was basically like, a vacation from school. They had something called the accelerated learning process, which was supposedly teaching us way more about the subjects in a shorter amount of time than you've ever experienced before. I'm not even sure, because our one of our main teachers, Mr. Van, was this stoner surfer dude who used to set his clock ahead so he could sneak out and catch frosty breaks when the waves were coming in. He had a radio on his desk, and he'd listen to the tide report and stuff. And if a big break was coming in, he'd literally set his clock ahead, and so he could leave early, and he'd lock the principals out of the room, and he'd be like, "Don't let him in if they try to come in, don't let him in until the bell rings," trying to tell us to lock the principals out. So he finally got fired for that. those were our teachers,
Jeez, man. I want to ask about Jonas. Last time we were on, we found out how you got the gig at MGM. I'm intrigued to hear about, and Andrew Graham asks this, how the showrunners prepared you for this part, because season 6 wasn't really a guarantee. They were going to do something next. And then with Shanks stepping out, you're stepping into this thing. That's a big role to fill in the show. And was there anything that they assisted you with in terms of preparing you for what was going to come next? Not talking about fandom, but talking about the part. Filling those shoes.
Fortunately and unfortunately, I had no idea about how successful the show was and what a cultish like following it had worldwide. Because it was on Showtime for the first 5 seasons, I didn't have Showtime. I was too busy to watch TV anyway throughout almost all of the late 80s and 90s. I vaguely remember watching TV a few times, so I do remember seeing all the posters for it when a new season was coming out. They'd have the billboards and all of this stuff. So I knew that it was a big deal. And I was a huge fan of the feature film. The feature film was one of my all-time favorite sci-fis. Okay. And I was shocked that it essentially flopped in its US release. I know that it made its money internationally, similar to Waterworld, but overall in the US it was kind of a fizzler, and I feel its pain, because I had done a movie that came out around the same time period called Solar Crisis, which had myself, Jack Palance, Peter Boyle, Charlton Heston, an incredible huge cast. And it was a huge it was $48 million in 1989, which is probably like 130 million now, or more. And it fizzled. It just totally died at the theater. So I don't know if it was something about sci-fi at that time or not, but it was a great movie. So when they came to me with the opportunity to be in it, that's all I knew. And I went to the producer. I said, well, I need to catch up with the storyline. And I got all 5 seasons. And I watched, all 5 seasons in the lead up to working on the show. And when I first started working on it, I was still watching episodes. Okay. But I watched every single episode of the show, and I was that so I could get caught up to what is this world that I'm in, and understand the background of the different characters and know what I'm talking about. So I'm not just like saying words and trying to say them as relaxed as possible so that people don't realize that I have no clue what this actually means, and see, Amanda Tapping, she had that same dilemma of like, she has to have all this techno babble, but God bless her, she actually went and she would research it, and she'd talk to the writers, and she'd figure out, she knew exactly what she was talking about, and that's why she was able to do it so convincingly and memorize her dialogue so easily, because she actually wasn't a lazy actor. She did the research and figured out, well, even if it's theoretical, what does it mean? What am I talking about? What are these? Let me define this, this crazy word that's as long as supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You know what I mean? So, that was inspiring, and I'm the same way. I kind of work the same way. So I entered the show just wanting to be a part of something that I respected, was blown away by, excited about, and wanted to deliver a character that I felt could be fit the mold, and have fun and enjoy the process. I certainly didn't want to be having to play some character who's like all disgruntled and grumpy about being away from his home planet or whatever and all this. It's like, he's
a refugee.
He's a refugee, totally, bro. But he loves the food. He's stoked to be on planet Earth, man. You guys got way better. We eat a lot of lizard back on Langara, and the Colonan lizard. It's not. It's it's hammy, but
that's funny.
It's really a lot of tendons.
Linda, do you have a Jonas Quinn memory?
I know that I was uncertain about the character at first, and because of how they set up your joining the show, that here's this character, and it was Daniel who stepped up in that moment and stopped the bomb from going off. And I think a lot of the fans felt, well, that should have been Jonas. It was his planet. But I mean, that was the script. That wasn't anything you personally as a human being did or didn't do.
He wasn't a hero yet.
It set it up so that we were skeptical about you. And I know the first moment I fell in love with you was that swimming scene.
Where he didn't take a breath.
That, and I was like,
1 minute and 48 seconds.
Yeah,
and
I was like,
long.
oh my God, this guy
is. They had to edit the scene down. I held my breath too long.
And you're not just sitting still; you're moving, and you're moving glass plates, and that was just a wild.
Oddly enough, I had, unbeknownst to me, I had been training my whole life for this moment. I was when I grew up down in the South. I lived in a lot of the apartment complexes, and with the local pool and all of that stuff. And I was the champion of how many times you could swim back and forth from end to end without taking a breath. I could do like 6 times. I mean, I made it my mission for no one to be able to hold their breath longer than this guy.
So you were ready.
Literally. And so it was hilarious. When I read the part, I got there and I was going to do the scene. I was like, they have no idea. I have years of training for this behind me. And also I had learned from this military dude when I was on the movie Operation Dumbo Drop. Our military advisor, he went through, like whatever his training is and stuff like that, and he taught me a breathing technique where you actually you basically hyperventilate yourself. So you just overload your body with oxygen. Then you do your final breath before you do any kind of underwater kind of sneaky stuff, because then you have this huge amount of oxygen in your system. And if you're calm, patient, relaxed, you can stay underwater a remarkably long time. In fact, I could have gone longer than the 1 minute and 48 second mark, but I was done with the beaten moment of the character.
Yeah, the business down there. Yeah,
I had to get ringed out, so that I could come splashing in the next location with a huge torrent of water as well, which was a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody knows how I did that, but I was standing there and I basically had to just leap up into the air and just land face first on the ground to create that moment. It was painful, but I did it.
It's one of the best shots in the show.
I did it for you Stargate maniacs, just for you.
Yeah, no, seriously, David's right. It's one of the best scenes in the show, and that moment of boom, and there he is with the big splash of water. It's just a
that was awesome.
I think that the thing that really and I think that is a redeeming moment for the character in many respects, because now he's the man. He's been brooding this entire episode about, I was able to pull off an intellectual exercise over here. The gate goes up, not just down, but also, knowing, he talks about it, knowing what to do in the moment and taking action. And I think that was when the character really began to earn his stripes. But when you look back, I don't know how involved you were with reading fan responses at the time. I don't know if that was something
that subject. Well, actually, they kept it complete. I was so. I'm not a huge fan of the internet, to be honest. Yep. I love the fact that I can research stuff on it real easy, but I don't necessarily trust all the sites I'm getting my research from. But it's still unique, and I was really late into getting into the social media thing. I really started. I started Twitter down in Australia at a convention because a whole group of fans at a Q&A and all of this stuff demanded it of me, essentially. And I literally started my Twitter, which is X now, obviously, but I started my Twitter right there with all of them, and everybody was following all at the same time. So it was like a fun interaction. I was like, okay, this is cool. And I enjoyed it for a while, but anonymity to me is one of the greatest blessings that we have in life, is being able to live privately, enjoy the private moments in life, enjoy the beauty of and simplicity of life without all the rigmarole, So I wasn't savvy at all on the internet with what was going on. I do know that there was a write-in campaign. I didn't find out until much later on, but boxes of letters before my character even went on and started season 6. And I think one of the other tragic parts of it is that really the show didn't really start airing on Sci-Fi. All my episodes and everything really didn't start airing on Sci-Fi until we were, months and months into shooting, you know what I mean? Halfway through the season and all of that. So before any of my stuff is even really airing and people are really making a final judgment on whether I'm right for the role or not, they had already gotten into panic mode and started trying to figure out a way to bring Daniel Jackson back. So that was already in motion, way before we wrapped season 6. It wasn't something that just happened, spur of the moment. Right. After we finished season 6, there was already something going on behind the scenes that I wasn't privy to, that I've been promised had nothing to do with my performance or the character or anything else. It was just politics, and that's kind of why they threw me a bone and let me write the story for one of the episodes that did in season 7. But that's also because when they gave me carte blanche to go and pitch any show idea that I had in mind, I was up in the writer's nest all the time, just harassing them, what about this idea? What about that? What do you, and pitching, and actually it was Joe Malozzi who I got to give huge amounts of credit to, because he really helped me as a writer. I'd written before I started that show and wrote after that as well, but professionally, that is. But I didn't really understand the pitch process and how to streamline my beat sheet, and how to do. There were certain elements of the writing process that he had honed down so perfectly, and he made my life way easier and a lot more fun. So I love Joe Malozzi for that.
No, he's a great guy, and he also follows. He's also one of the ones who has his pulse on the responses online, so he has an idea of what's happening. But you're right. If you're
Yes.
a lot of the show, you were almost well through halfway through the season before the show even aired. And
I think that and thank God for it, because honestly, if I had any inkling whatsoever that my character wasn't coming back, I would have been so distraught every day, because I had made massive moves because I was told that my character was going to continue on. So I had moved up there. I'd gotten an apartment up there. I had gotten my daughter registered in school for the next year up there. I had gone through all of this stuff.
Dude, how many pounds did you gain?
I gained about, let's see, 78. So
that is not the same man.
About 28 pounds.
God, that is not the same man from season 5 to season 6. He found the gym. That was an amazing transformation.
Well, I had to, because when I realized I was going on as a series regular with Chris Judge, number one, and then with how tall RDA is, and he's he's not a buff dude, but he's physically very fit. And Amanda Tapping, she's like 5'11", and she's like as tall as I am. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like 5'11" and a half, 6 foot tall, whatever. And so I was like, I can't disappear on camera.
Okay.
I have to be able to. And then looking at how fit Michael Shanks was. Mm-hmm. And so the months from when I found out that I probably had about 4 months before I had four or so months before I had to go up there to shoot. And within a 4-month period, I was doing weight gainer shakes, going to the gym like twice a day, like legs in the morning, arms in the afternoon, weight gainer, chicken rice, steak and pasta, this. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't wear anything. I went from a size 31 waist to 36.
You were enormous.
Yeah. And I was glad to lose it all, because if anybody saw, people always trip out. They're like, "Oh God, you were so big in that. What happened to you? Are you sick?" I'm like, dude, watch anything I was in before Stargate. Yeah. Please go back. Go all the way back to when I was 12. You're going to see that this is the natural me. You know what I mean? I got to go really out of my way to get all of that mass on me. My mom and dad are both like, they're like tea straws. You know what I mean? You can't even suck liquid through them.
Lockwatcher, your third episode, Descent, Mark O'Neill's acceptance of your character as a true member of SG-1. Did you feel accepted by the cast and crew as well? How long did it really take you to assimilate?
Oh no, they were. Everybody was 100%. Look. If there had been any weirdness to why I had been brought on, if I had been forced upon them for some reason, or if I came in with some kind of like attitude, like, "Yo, I'm the new guy on the show. Hey, man, this is me time." And I'm far more humble than that. I saw the opportunity for what it was, an incredible way to reinvent myself, get back on a series, which is the best work any actor can ever have. If any actor gets on a series and they get so better than thou that they think they're better than the show they're on, and think that they can go off and do bigger and better things, hell, maybe they can, but I wouldn't recommend it. You know what I'm saying? I would recommend you ride the carriage until the wheels fall off when you get a series, because there's no guarantees or promises in the film business for work. I'm just absolutely so blessed to be as busy as I've remained over all of these years, and as motivated as I've remained over all these years, and as interested in the business as I've remained all these years, and non-complacent, because when you reach a certain pinnacle of success, if you don't plan right, you can find yourself in short time right back where you were before you got your first job. And it can be even more difficult to get back in the rooms, because people will have an idea of who they think you are. you know, and that's as far as it goes. And it's very tough. A lot of the actors from a lot of the 80s and 90s sitcoms and family shows and stuff like that, who are tremendous talents, they can't. I mean, there's there's plenty of shows for them to be on today.
Yeah.
Plenty of shows. What I notice a lot when I'm watching a lot of these shows is I don't know any of these people. And they're all in the same age range as all of these actors who have tremendous talent and have a following from years back, who could easily be portraying these. But Hollywood has no it has no obligation to anybody, and there's no seniority in our union. There's no kind of fight to keep the actors who've been in the union for the longest, to keep them working. There's zero effort to assist, you know, veteran actors in maintaining enough work to make sense out of remaining, even being an actor. You know, it's a terribly shallow and crass industry that you have to have a lot of heart to remain in, you know, for any long period of time.
Linda?
Yeah, I feel like this is a good place to start talking about your book.
But before we do that, I'd love to have you back later this year to talk more about the industry and the process of going from a child actor to an adult and the transitions there. I really hope to be able to talk to you later again.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
But
totally.
Yes, Linda, go ahead. You've been busy writing, man.
Yeah.
This is Corin's new book, and you can see all my little marks that I put into it as I was reading when I found things that were really fascinating.
Those aren't the grammatical errors. It is self-edited, so.
Okay. So this is creating a character for the stage or life. There is a link that is available in the description below for that. This is a self-publish over on lulu.com. But Linda, you had the pleasure of reading this, and tell me about tell us about what you took away from it. We do have a few questions for Corin on this book.
Yeah, I was really fascinated to read it. I did competitive drama in high school. I lived in New England, and the New England Drama Festival is like everything there when you're in high school. So anytime a book on acting technique comes up, I'm still really interested, even though I'm a librarian these days.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah. So
I love libraries.
Thank you. When I was reading it, I was seeing many similarities between what's called method acting technique, and method is it sort of originated in New York, and I'm sure you can tell us more about that, and Lee Strasberg. But you talk about your mentor Manu Tupou.
Yeah,
breaking off from that, and because of the potential damage that method acting technique, if it's pushed too far, can do to a person. Mm-hmm. You know, it's method is taking your own life experiences and putting them into the character, and if you have traumatic experiences that you're being expected to draw on, that can bring back that trauma, and
not only that, what behaviors or tendencies, if you're too obsessed with that methodology of creating a character, if you're completely engrossed, because I did study it for a time with Larry Moss, and in fact, although Larry Moss is a fantastic teacher, I felt it damaged my ability to act more than it helped, because previous to that, I had no interactions with the method at all, really, except for working with John Lenn for a short time when I was doing I Know My First Name is Steven, but even he wasn't pushing too hard in that direction. And the other teachers I studied with were really into improvisation and more of that kind of a creative, looseness, which you need for teaching youth actors, young actors. Yeah. So when I started studying the method when I was 18, and trying to apply that in roles I did, especially with My Son Johnny, with Rick Schroeder, it became very painful and difficult for me. Whereas when I know my first name is Stephen, I just believed that I was Stephen. His life was traumatic enough. What he went through was awful enough. I just believed that I was going through what he went through. And it was a very natural, and I left the work that day and felt good about myself, you know. And whereas when I was doing the My Son Johnny and I was trying to, you know, use aspects of my own life and find things from my experiences to plug in for these emotional this and that, and it became something that was more painful for me or more difficult and all that. And so when I ended up studying with Manu, I realized, oh, I don't need that to be a great actor, because it was like all the great actors were using the method. And it's like, if that's what I wanted to, my dream was to be a senior member of the Actors Studio one day. But when I started studying with Manu, and he was a senior member of the Actors Studio, and he was telling me that it's hoopla, don't bother, you're going to waste your time, you know, and you'll just be like like all the rest of these crazy egomaniacs. That's all you're going to end up like, you know, thinking that your shit doesn't stink, you know. And that's what he used to tell us. He's like, you know, he would say that he's at the Actor Studio, he just has to sit around everybody thinking that they know everything.
Yeah.
And that, you know what I mean? That there's no conversation. It's whatever. So I don't know if it's really like that, because I didn't study there. So I won't disparage the Actors Studio. I'm sure it's a magical place to work and to create, and a very free and liberating place as an artist, with, you know, without constraints on your performances. But studying with Manu opened me up to what's called the New Era acting technique, and it's a total creationist method. And he utilized certain exercises to achieve this goal, which were very specific. The relaxation and creation exercise were the most specific to get our class started. So we'd start by doing generally kind of a Buddhistic meditation. Some people would om in the class if they were super hippied out for it, you know. But you know, for me, it's just about, you got to let it go.
Oh, we're getting a call.
You know, and you gotta let go of all of the crap from your life. You know, that was the other thing he said, is when you step on stage, your baggage stays behind the door. It stays out there in the world. You don't bring your baggage to the stage. Then you get on stage, you relax, you let go of everything, you get loose, you know, with your feelings, and then you do a creation exercise, which is like, you create a pot of tea, you create making a sandwich, you create having a picnic, you create trimming a bush, whatever, and you just sit there in your place on the stage, or create a shower, or whatever your thing is, and with your eyes closed, you create in a multi-dimensional space whatever it is you're doing. You want to see it. You want to see the vividness of it in your mind, the textures. You want to feel the weight of everything. You want to create it, because not every time you're doing a stage production or whatever can you have real coffee in the cup. Can you have liquid in the cup? You're on a stage, you can't spill the liquid. You have to pantomime everything. But is it hot? Is it cold? What is it? I mean, how many times do you watch? I can't stand it, watching TV shows with these actors, and somebody sets down a cup of coffee at a diner and they just grab it and they're like, and like, what just happened there? Is the coffee that lukewarm? If it was that lukewarm, I'd be like, yo, send my coffee back. I need to blow on this for a couple of minutes before this is terrible. There's a miss. You're not crushing in what's going on around you with how your character feels about things, you know. So once we did the creation exercise, we'd come out of that, and then we'd start getting into our scene work and stuff. Which was in 3 stages. One is the throwaway monologue, or a throwaway scene, which basically you bring in. The private moment was central to that. So before he would even let you do a scene, you had to achieve the private moment. A private moment is where you brought, instead of doing an imagination exercise, you brought the real thing there. So you can bring out, you want to build a house of cards, you want to set up a bunch of dominoes, you want to fold some laundry, you want to make a sandwich, you want to do the things, and you come in and you do that. But how performative is it? How in present time is it? How much are you connected to just what it is that you're doing, that the fourth wall is so up that when people are out there watching, they are so riveted on watching you make this sandwich they can't take their eyes off of it, because the behavior it's like watching, a dog. The reason why we're so fascinated with what our pets are up to is because they're fascinated in what it is they're up to. So we're, and when you see somebody who's interested in something, when you're walking down the street, and if you saw a guy with a notepad and a pen, and he's staring at a building, and he's making notes, and he's doing all these things, and he's looking and he's measuring stuff, when you're walking by, you're gonna be like, God, what is that guy up to? You're going to be interested in behavior, So he wanted to crush behavior into the scene work. So once he felt you achieved the private moment and you behaved naturally and organically without knowing the audience is there, then he'd say, now add dialogue to that. So you'd memorize your dialogue for a monologue or whatever, and then you would do the same exact thing, except you would say the words. You just say them. You just do folding laundry, and you're just saying words, and you're just letting them spill off of you and all of that, so that you're not paying attention to the behavior and the words at the same time. There's a lot of actors who can't behave and speak at the same time. They have to do one or the other. Well, no, you can watch it. A lot of television actors and all of that stuff, There's a lot of stuff you'll see, dinner scenes, this, that, the other. A lot of it is because you want to match. You're worried about continuity and all of that. So I'll give that, you have to, pay attention to that. But behaviorally, when they sit down for breakfast, none of them seem that hungry. None of them seem like, is dinner late? Are they just now, what's it? You know what I mean? They're just talking and eating, and
it's just a location to them. Yeah.
So it's so how do you crush it in and make it all really believable where your world is as vivid? Because even environments, so once you got your private, your throwaway monologue done, and he felt like you were able to just say the words and behave without any attachments, then you went on to your stage one, which was starting to make some choices for your character, starting to find its spine, its social and chronic conditions. Like a social condition would be, how are they outwardly? What do they project out to everybody? Do they project confidence and this, that, and the other? But their chronic condition, when they close the door, is just fear and anxiety. You know what I mean? So what is that? When you find the juxtaposition of what's going on in the characters' lives, where are they coming from? Where are they going to? What are their needs and wants? Then so if your character is walking into the office and he's delivering some paperwork, and then he's exiting, and you just walk, hey, yeah, here you go. Yeah, I'm not saying that everybody has to make wild and radical choices, but it's like, is this guy about to shit himself?
Yeah.
And did they say, take this to the boss? And he's going by, he's like, no, I got to go hit it. No, you have to get this to the boss first. And he's like, okay, I'll get it to the boss. And he's running and he enters so quick. He goes, here you go, boss. Here you go. And in and out so fast. You're like, whoa, where did that? Now it becomes interesting. Mm-hmm. A behavior was added to it, whatever, some character choice, something was added to the moment. And then that's in that stage one, we start really, really bringing it to life and solidifying it. And then stage two is when we've honed down all of our choices. We know what our spine is, our need and want of the character. We know what our history of our character is, where he's from, where he grew up, what economic strata he was in, what kind of education did the character have. All of these things are fundamental, because if you're playing a sheriff, well, is this a sheriff who didn't even finish high school? Or is this a sheriff who went and studied sociology or criminal whatever at school? Is this a sheriff who is just a good old boy who's just the sheriff? What's his history? You're not going to know who the character is until you find out where he's from, how he was raised, who his parents are, what was his life experience growing up. Did he have a father that was good to him, or did he have a father that was bad to him? Did he have a father at all? All of these things change huge amounts of performative behavior in a character, especially in terms of those what we're talking about, the chronic condition, the private moment, when you catch the character when nobody else thinks that the character knows that somebody's watching. So the flamboyant boss who knows that his company is failing and he's squandered the money away, but he hasn't told anybody yet. But he's the nice guy around there. He's always buying everybody lunches and everything.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody walks by and looks through the glass window and sees him when he thinks nobody else is seeing him, and he's got his hands on the desk and he's like, oh, my life is ending. And then they open the door and he's like, hey,
Yeah.
you know. Then you have a real crushing of worlds. And then again, environmentally, we used to do this thing, the communion with nature. And the communion with nature was going out into some place that's stereotypically devoid of the mechanistic world, and trying to get back in touch with the language that the grass is speaking, the trees are speaking, the wind is speaking, the bugs are speaking, that all of the energy of the creative universe is throwing at you, because it was Manu's belief, and it is mine too, that there is a frequency of communication from all sentient matter, including animal life, including mineral life, and all the way down. There's a vibrational frequency that it's communicating to you what it is, what it's for, why it's there. You know, there was a part in my book where I talk about a book called The Cosmic Serpent, which is just a great read. It's a little lackluster in its ending, you know, because this guy doesn't go through the whole shamanic thing. He's really kind of not allowed to, because he's this Dutch anthropologist and he's just not willing to go. And he's got other things. He's got a world back in the Netherlands that's calling his attention all the time, and he can't go through the whole process that the shamans do. So, so it's a failed attempt at him trying to, but what he does discover in the process is that the shamans were saying to him that he was asking them, how do you know how to make the ayahuasca? How do you know how to make all of these tinctures and these stuff and everything? And they're like, the plants tell us what their use is. It's the plants. We just talk to the plants. The plants say, hey, yeah, don't eat us, you'll die. Or if you take us and you mix us with this, it will help that. Or whatever. They're saying that's what it. And at first he thought they were crazy. And now you got these people out there doing music, plant music, hooking up these electrodes to plant, and they're making sounds and you can hear the frequency of nature now, legitimately, and that's the communication they're talking about. So communion with nature exercise was really fundamental in bringing us back down to earth, and that also gets you in communication with your outward environment. So when you walk into a space, is it the first time the character's ever been in the space? How often do we see actors walking in and out of rooms that when you're watching the movie, they've never been in that room before, and they're just walking in and out of the room, saying a bunch of stuff and leaving? Did they even see the room they were in? Did they even, what's this room to them? What does it mean to them? Or is their ego so superior to everything around them that the room is insignificant? That's a great character choice, because that also would go with food, with people, with pets, with whatever, that kind of arrogance. You know what I mean? Now when you sit down for dinner, I have to eat this with you peasants? I guess I will. It's disgusting. Blech. Now you start getting characters, you know what I mean? So that's what the whole book is really about, is about also dropping this, we had to also find our 0 point after our meditation. That was the whole point of it, was to let go of who we think we are, because the personality itself is totally programmed. It's 100% programmed.
Yeah.
No one in life is not suffering from years worth of psychological programming.
Yep.
And who they think they are just on their name. You ask somebody, what is your name? Is that who you are? Yes, that's who I am. Oh, so you're a bunch of letters on a piece of paper down at the city hall that says born on it? That's who you are? You're this name? Okay, that's interesting. How are you a name? How can you even possibly be a name? It's ridiculous. You can call yourself something. I mean, this is all just my opinion, but
Sure.
You can call yourself, but you can't be that thing. You can emulate it. You can tell people to tell you, to call you that or whatever. That's why all this thing with the identifiers and all of this today. We can identify with anything. I'm a chair. I identify as that chair. Okay, psychologically, I guess we're going to have to agree with that, because you're saying that it's true for you. So, but it's all about agreements. How many people agree with it? If enough people in the room agree that Joe is a chair, And it only starts with one person going, yeah, I think Joe is a chair. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, and 10. Next thing you know, everywhere Joe goes, he's now a chair. People are trying to sit on him. You know what I mean? So by disagreement is the thing. Disagreeing with it all. That's how you find your 0 point. You disagree with the entirety of the universe and get down to just what is the vibe? What's the sensation? What's the experience of being me? Am I in turmoil? What's my energy level? What's my vibrational tone? What's my frequency? Where am I? You know what I mean? What am I resonating? And how am I dealing with all of the flows that are coming at me? You know, another short exercise he would have us do is just walking around the stage with all of the other actors and not allowing their energy to affect your space, no matter how close they got to you. And everybody doing that simultaneously. Sharing space, but not being the effect of other people's energy in your space. That's also how you can stay the, remain, non-effect, you know what I mean? Causative. You can remain causative over every element of your life just by disagreeing with that one thing alone. That, you know what I mean? That I don't have to agree with any of this reality. You can convince me. Mm-hmm. And if I determine in my skepticism that what you're convincing me of is true to me, then I'll go into agreement with it. But in the meantime, everything is just based on how many people have agreed that it is what it is. If a table is sitting there and you put your feet up on it, is the table a stool? If 3 people put their feet up on it and they all say, hey, this makes a much better stool or footrest than it does a table, I think we should just call this a stool from now on. And now suddenly it's a stool. You know, so that the flexibility of personality is the same. When we become programmed to be the person we think we are, we become fixated on the idea of self, and that ego solidifies, it crystallizes into a metaphysical body. It actually determinatively would have weight and substance to it, but of a metaphysical nature that we're projecting into our own universe. We're projecting who we think we are, and everything is filtering through that, you know. And then we're out there in the universe reacting and behaving to it under all of this programming. We've got to deprogram ourselves, get to a 0 point, breathe, relax. You know what I'm saying? And then create, then get into the causative, then decide. You know what I mean? And I'm by no means am I some professional guru at applying this to my life. I'm not. I'm in the throes of the ups and downs like everybody is, in the frustrations and the trying to force, reality to go in the direction you want it to go in.
But you're recognizing that you have to rid yourself of your assumptions.
Yeah, totally.
If you're going to create anything new.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the healthy way to do it. I think it's the healthier way, because then you also don't have any attachments in the character development as well. When you leave set every day, as soon as you take your wardrobe off, the character's gone. When you take your wardrobe off as a method actor, that character goes with you when you put on your own clothes, because you are part of that character. You've projected some aspect of yourself into that character, and it might be amazing. It might be great, but it's a slippery slope.
Mute.
Find yourself believing that you are this character, and all the hype about you. Oh, he's great. He's fantastic. He's awesome. We love what he has to say. He's incredible. Da 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 da. And you believe that, suddenly you become that, and now you're not even. Now you're totally compartmentalized in this idea.
Yeah. How much is you anymore?
How much is it's so strange. So that's kind of what the book is about too, is introducing this idea of a letting go of the necessity, the overwhelming need to be who we think we are. It's exhausting.
I don't know if you're Linda, are you as riveted about this as I am? Because
I am. It's making great sense to me, in that one of the characters I played in High School Drama Festival was Irish. And I had to put on the accents and the mannerisms and I've told David this story before, that after the 6 months of playing this character, which was the whole arc of festival, and we won the gold medal, and that was all wonderful. But then for like the next 4 years, I couldn't get rid of the Irish accent. It had become such a part of me that I changed schools at about that period of time, and all the kids at the new school thought I was Irish. They thought I was just over on the boat.
Far out? Yeah.
And they thought I was this Irish person, and I'm not. Grew up in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah. Corin,
Yeah.
let's.
But it became a part of me that I had to get rid of. And there are certain phrases that I say, and they only come out Irish because they were lines from the character.
That's great. You better learn a lot of
limericks. It's just weird, but it's what you said. I can't. It took a long time to take that character off and put it to the side. And
the thing is, characters can become a lot of fun too, though. You don't want to put them away. You know what I mean? Especially when it has accents and stuff like that. I did one. I had to play a British kid in this movie, Foreign Correspondence in the late '90s, and I worked so hard to get the accent. I wouldn't only talk in the accent. And we had a bunch of Brits, like at least 4 on our crew, and I didn't realize it, but they thought that I was from the UK. They honestly did. It wasn't until like the second week of filming that they asked me, comfortable enough to just have a casual conversation or whatever. And like, yeah, so, where are you from over there? And I was like, Arkansas. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
And then I just dropped the accent. I just dropped it. I go, yeah. But I have to stay. I got to keep this. And it became sort of a compulsive, obsessive thing for me too, for a while. I would break it out on occasion. In fact, one time I got out of a ticket for drinking a beer on a beach with my buddy. He loves this story. The undercover cop walked up. We were out in Malibu, and we were just drinking a beer, each one of us, just a can of Tecate, nothing big. And he goes, yeah. At first, the guy walks up. He goes, hey, can I have one of those? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, yeah. At first, I thought that was a Dr. Pepper, and then he unzips his little bag and flips open his badge. He's like, yeah, I caught you drinking a beer on that beach, And I was like, oh, right, I have no idea what you saw. And I went into my whole British thing. I had no idea we can drink. And he ended up going, okay, well, you're obviously not from here, but you should have known better. And he wrote my buddy a ticket and let me off.
Wow. Never know when those tools and that belt are going to come in handy, man. God.
It was hilarious.
I have had so many actors on, but I've never really gone through the process of deconstructing a role like we just have, or deconstructing yourself in order to begin to find the role. Let's please have you back later this year so we can discuss this more, because this is fascinating. So, Linda, will you come back on as well?
Oh, I'd love to. I really would love to talk to you about how you applied this technique to Jonas and built him up. I think that would be really fascinating.
Well, the food, yeah. Look at all the food. They had to ban me from eating at a certain point.
Aria J asked, was this written into the script, or was this your detail?
The food was all me, because I thought the character is like, it's environmental. He's like, what's the first thing that he's going to come in contact with? Food, the drinks, the stuff. And this is all new. And
the Weather Channel.
And there's nothing like having the Weather Channel was their idea. But like me making like a grilled cheese sandwich or whatever in the background in the kitchen when we're having that whole conversation, or me with drinking the tea all the time, or me with the banana in outer space. All of that stuff was my idea. And eventually they ended up not allowing me, if it wasn't written after, I forget which episode it was, but we were pretty deep into it, maybe even close to the end of the 6th season. But we were doing a scene up in the big conference room, and I had like one line in the whole entire scene, and I'm like, geez, I'm just going to be like, just standing around here for like 6 pages, I guess, no problem. I'll just be listening. And I looked over, and they had on the craft service, the table of food and stuff they always have up there. There was this big fruit basket and stuff. So I just grabbed an orange and just started peeling an orange, and I finally get to my line. I'm like eating a bite of it. I'm saying my line, whatever. Well, everything was fine. No one said a word about it. I did it every single take. They did it all through the thing. But when they got in the editing room, every time they cut to the wide shot,
oh
no! Is look at Jonas over there peeling this orange, and they're like, stop peeling the orange. We can't concentrate on anything else but that.
You were concentrated on that orange, man. You made everyone else interested in you being interested in the orange.
It was the nail in my coffin. It was the nail in my creative coffin.
Last question, Kim Albright, when does Place of Bones come out?
It's supposed to be June. Now,
Okay.
I don't know. This is just the rumor mill. It's screening right now at the Sunscreen Film Festival in St. Petersburg as well. I love it. It's a fantastic film. I mean, Audrey Cummings, the director, just really, really knocked it out of the park. David Lipper, the executive producer on it, he was so gracious on set, creatively and everything to really let Audrey, find the vision for this wonderful script that was written that we had a chance to bring to life. And the cinematographer was just Andres. He did a bunch of films with Quentin Tarantino, and so his eye for lighting. It looks as it looks just as good as Hateful Eight. Just as beautiful as Hateful Eight, the lighting and all of that stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited about that film, and I think that it should do quite well in the genre, in the Western genre.
Awesome. Linda, anything last to say?
No, just that this has been really wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, this was cool.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you as well. You as well. We'll do it again.
And you are on Cameo.
I am on Cameo.
All right. I put a link in the description below for that information. Corin will be in touch. Thank you so much. I want to get more into the nitty gritty of this.
I love it.
Thank you, sir. And thank
Cheers,
you, Linda.
Anytime.
Corin Nemec, Jonas Quinn in Stargate SG-1. Thank you so much to Corin for joining us for this episode, and to Linda as well, my producer on Dial the Gates. I love having this guy on. He always got some interesting stories to tell, and his perspective on life, especially starting off as a child actor in the industry, is that's a unique journey. So before I let you go, if you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It makes a difference with the show and really helps it grow its audience. And please consider sharing it with a Stargate friend as well. And if you want to or Parker Lewis fans out there, and The Stand, which is where I found Corin. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon, and giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. We've got quite an expansive list of programming for you on DialTheGate.com. It has the complete list there, so I'm really truly excited about some of the stuff that's coming down the pike. Join us for Wormhole Extremists this afternoon on our companion YouTube channel. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side.